and protected areas, and then in economic development. And I was in one of the first bigger tourism projects. It was a regional one in Central America. But still the ministry said, don't go for the mass tourism, don't go for the big hotels, don't go for real estate, just for the small scale, the community-based and the ecotourism side. However, we were sitting in an all-inclusive resort, the only one and only in Nicaragua. I was based in Nicaragua. It was from Spanish chain Barceló. And very often we had conferences there because it was the cheapest place to have a conference. But my colleagues were very critical. They said, oh, all-inclusive, Spanish chain, no benefit for the country, bad treatment of the workers, they don't buy outside, and all the bulk of prejudices, I dare to say it's all prejudices against all-inclusive tourism. And since I'm the one who does not believe what everybody is saying, I just went to the kitchen and I asked them, where do you buy your tomatoes, where do you buy your meat? And I found out, they told me, most of it is from Nicaragua. We only import things that the country doesn't produce. So now the ball was in our playing field, because if there is a problem with all-inclusive and imports, it's not that the hotel doesn't like to buy, it's the country, the farmers who don't have the capacity to produce what the hotel needs. You can go on with furniture, with amenities, cosmetics, hygiene products. So all the products tourism and hotel needs, you need to prepare the country to deliver, then you have more benefits from tourism. From that, we try to find out, and this is one of the things we are still in struggle, because the ideological debate, the tourism critics, if you look on the website of Tourism Concern in the UK, the subtitle of Tourism Concern is Fighting Exploitation in Tourism, so that's a very tough program. Or even Tourism Watch from Germany, they always argue against big tourism, mass tourism, it's not bringing any benefits, and the small scale is good. But we didn't find any study of any of those NGOs who showed why an all-inclusive is completely bad and why the small scale is good. So this is part of our task. I'm now leading the sector project, Tourism and Sustainable Development at GIZ. This is a cross-sector project that looks into all linkages of tourism to sustainable development. So we did some studies on what is the impact of this so much criticized mass tourism all over the world. We did so far 25 hotels. We did even Jumeirah and Dubai. We did all-inclusives. I just give you 2 or 3 figures. That is why I'm here and why we are interested in this sector. If you look into a sandals resort in Jamaica, this is ultra all-inclusive, 5-star. The official price per day, all-inclusive, is $300. An American couple pays $5,000 for 1 week in sandals with the flight. And one resort of them is producing only in salaries more than $3 million. So on 1 hectare of such a resort, only what is paid in salary to the people living in the next door communities is between $300,000 and $500,000 US. I have the template of the contribution of the 12 resorts of sandals in Jamaica to the economy. It's more than $100 million US. And what is important for us, all is money taken from wealthier American other people. And this is one of the words I want to use. Tourism is, for me, the #1 redistribution or industry in the world that takes much money from wealthier people and gives a bigger part than nearly any other industry to people who need it. So now jumping to this event today, our approach in tourism is we need to look into facts and figures, not into ideology. And we need, even for the golf course, we need all those figures, what is the real background. And our approach now is very much linked with the new debate on the inclusive, on the green economy. And unfortunately, many people who are from the solar industry see the solar industry as the #1 driver of the green economy. I say this is not an inclusive green economy, because solar industry produces billionaires in China, and poor people from Germany have to pay more for their energy because of those people making money with the energy. So it's not an inclusive green economy. And in the inclusive green economy, we are looking now into real estate and tourism. As I'm very much into facts and figures, I'll give you one figure that will surprise you. If you take 1 hectare of a beach area all over the world, 1 kilometer, not 1 hectare, 1 kilometer of beach that can be developed, that is attractive, can be developed for both real estate and tourism. If you take the 1 kilometer inside from the beachfront, the added value, if it was farmland, it's $1 or less the square meter. If this is development land for real estate and for hotels, it jumps up to, you've seen it here perfectly, 40, 50 more dollars. Just 1 kilometer of beach, the value added, if it's $50 per square meter, is 50 million US dollars. So if you have 100 kilometers of coast, it's 5 billion. And in some countries, like Nicaragua, the beachfront value added is twice the GDP. Now the big question for this debate is, what is the role of real estate? It has a role to play in that. Second homes, real estate is a high value driver. What is the role of hotels? How do we balance this, having hotels for tourism development, and very often it is necessary to have a mixture with real estate development. Because what you said, there's much criticism on second homes. If you have only, like in Nicaragua, we have some situations there's only second homes, the value added, the local benefit is very low. If a rich guy from the capital city, Managua, buys such a second home, he closes a beach that could be developed for tourism. He comes on the weekend with his employee, with all the food from the supermarket in Managua. There's no local benefit in the operation, maybe just 1 or 2 jobs, the watchman. If you have a hotel there, I've given you the figures, it's 10, 50 times more local benefits. However, we have heard some reasons why real estate plays a role in the financing of tourism development. And the big question we should debate here, how do we get the balance of having hotel rooms and in a mixture with real estate, giving this a healthy balance for both the real estate developers and the people benefiting from tourism and for the country. And there are some governance issues that we should discuss that can direct development in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Klaus. Well, too many challenges and too many issues to be addressed and to get the best of this sector. Let's start by the issue of finance, Mr. Campbell. How do you assess the financing strategies in terms of tourism and real estate investments in the region? And what types of funds and investments of financing are needed?
Right. I'm going to start. There's quite a lot you can say about this, but I'm going to make one observation about mixed developments, where you have real estate and hotel interlinked, part of the same development. We really don't like that, and we don't like it for a very good reason, because the project, which is the whole thing, is then exposed to 2 different sets of risks. You have a real estate risk, and you have a hotel operational risk. And they have different characteristics in the economy. And if you look, I don't know about Morocco, but if you look all across the Eastern Mediterranean, if you look all across the Caribbean, you will find half-built hotels which can't get finished because the bottom dropped out of the second home market. And what happens is the developer is dependent on stage payments and deposits from the real estate to be able to build the hotel. If the real estate market drops, he doesn't get the cash flow, he can't build the hotel, so you end up with half-built real estate and a half-built hotel and no value whatsoever. Now, one of the things which we are looking for in a project is a realistic business plan, obviously, but we are particularly looking for a realistic finance plan. What we get are a lot of propositions where we'll call it a promoter, the hotel promoter, says, I want to build a hotel, I've got 20% own funds, I'm going to borrow the rest. And we say, that's very nice, but it won't work. If you've got a very experienced hotel operator, who's seeking to extend, then we might accept 35 to 40% own funds, 60% lending. If it's somebody without experience, a new entrant, then we'd probably be looking for 50-50. And the reason is, hotels are very, very dependent on cash flow in the first 3 years of operation. And in those first 3 years, while the capacity utilization is going up, if you don't have enough cash flow to start repaying the loan, then the hotel runs out of money. And the only way that you can guarantee that is by having enough own funds in the project. So, as I said, we are a bank, but we have to repay our bondholders. So we have to look at the real credit risks that a hotel creates.
Thank you. Your Excellency, in your strategy to achieve the tourism vision for the year 2020, what risks you're looking for as a first priority and you're trying to meet and address in the near future?
Can I just react to some of the points raised by the two panelists? And one of them is this question of real estate in relation to hotels. I think from our experience, the projects that are really feasible are the projects which are mixed between residential and between real estate and hotels. And the reason why is because for a banker, it's very important that there is enough treasury for enough funds at the moment of development in order for the project to be viable. In a sense that if you are developing a resort, and then what you do, you start with the residential, and that residential you sell, and that contributes to your operation while you are developing the other sites, which are the hotels. A lot of developments are done in such a way. But I mean, I don't think we should look at it as being like two different things, because a lot of countries, among them Morocco, have issued laws and also tax incentives in order to turn the residential into hotel capacity, in the sense that they are branded apartments. There are also apartments that are used by hotels. There are also apartments that are run by specific kinds of firms according to specific law, and then they are used as hotel capacity. But I think in the development stage, and especially at moments when there are problems with attracting investors, the real estate is a good incentive for a lot of people to come. The more real estate you give in a project, the more you can attract investors to that. But I think that you can transform those to hotel capacity. It happened in Spain. It has happened in some other countries in the Canary Islands and all of that. That's one thing. I think the other thing also, and that's raised by Mr. Thomson, is the question of sustainability. I think sustainability does not mean losing money. Sustainability does not mean doing something because it's ethically good, because it's also you feel good about doing it. I think there is a business case for sustainability. And I think something that bankers should like, which is the fact that now a lot of people want to go to green kind of tourism. A lot of people like when hotels are using effective energy kind of standards. A lot of people like to go to green labeled hotels and restaurants. So it's not a niche, but it's a very good trend. And a lot of people who come to those hotels, who come to those restaurants, who come to those tourist destinations are high value added, in the sense that they have a very big purchase kind of power. And in that sense, there is a business case for sustainability. Sustainability means like you attract people with real power to spend, and in that sense, it makes the projects that we fund viable kinds of projects. The other thing also, and it's related to sustainability, is with regard to Gulfs in the southern Mediterranean countries, which is also something raised by Mr. Thomson. I think, yes, there is a case to be said for the fact that you develop Gulfs in places where there's not a lot of water. But I mean, for example, and I speak for Morocco, we have as an obligation that all our water, sewer water, and used water should be treated by the year 2020, in the sense that we will develop stations all over the country close to the big agglomerations, to big cities, in order to and that water is there. That water cannot be used for household consumption, and therefore it can be used to water the Gulfs. And it makes those stations that infiltrate the water sustainable, because there is somebody who can buy the water from them.
On this very point, can we say that the issue of sustainability will be mandatory in most of the investments that will take place in Morocco? And is the platform ready to apply it?
That's right. I mean, for us, Morocco is is approaching sustainability. I mean, like, our approach to tourism is from a sustainable point of view. We don't want to have sky rises in front of the sea. We don't want to have high occupancy of the soil when we develop our resorts. We don't want to have, I mean, we want to use only reused water. If you go south of Sawira, there are even gardens which infiltrate the water in order to use on the Gulfs. And we want also our tourism to have a positive impact on the communities. Some people spoke about the communities. For us, in all the resorts that we are having, we want people to be employed from those communities. We want the big resorts to contribute to establishing development buffers with those kinds of villages. And we would like our tourism actually to contribute. And that's a very important point. I think tourism, and Klaus, you're right about that, I think tourism can contribute to protecting areas if it's done well. Because, for example, like there are beaches which are protected actually by tourism projects. I again like cite the example of Sawira Mogador station. There is a nice gulf there which is really encrusted in the environment. It protects the fauna and the flora, but it also allowed for a rational and a sustainable development of the beach, which otherwise would not have been developed. And so we should conceive of tourism as one way of also safeguarding the environment, protecting the environment, and also allowing some beaches. For example, I just went with the governor in Morocco to one of the beaches in Morocco. I'm not going to mention the beach. When we look at it, it's a very beautiful beach. There is a small forest around it. And then we were thinking, shall we develop like a project close to that beach? Well, there are two options. You develop the project, you probably destroy that pristine element about it. But at the same time, if you don't do that, there will be other people who will come and destroy that beach. So what you need to do is develop something that really protects the flora, protects the fauna, protects the beach itself, and then creates something that is rational and regulated as activity around that beach. I think that tourism should not be regarded as one way of actually killing the pristine elements that exist within our environment. I think it should be looked at as one way of actually protecting those.
Here I would like to ask Ms. Zeljka, what is the broad concept of sustainable tourism specifically means, and how can we reconcile between traditional developments, tourist developments, and sustainable ones? Does each development need to be sustainable?
Well, the ultimate target would be really to have sustainable tourism, which is well embedded in local societies. But we cannot say that mass tourism will disappear. This is really not an option. You know, mass tourism is existing. It will stay and it will exist in future. But what is necessary to do about it, it is to see how to make it more sustainable, how to make it more environmentally sustainable, how to make it more profitable to the local population. What are the elements of sustainability? It is environment. There are three pillars of sustainability which can be applied in any activity, including tourism. It is environmental, it is social, it is economic sustainability. So the combination of the three should be the answer to your question. As far as tourism is regarded, what is needed to be avoided is the monoculture of tourism, you know, because this is a danger. Tourism should be seen and should be planned and should be managed as a vector for development of other sectors as well. So tourism that will help improving or developing agriculture, local skills, then local infrastructure. This is the kind of tourism that can be considered as sustainable. Also, we have to think about new challenges that are put in front of us in the future, which is the climate change. You know. How to deal with that issue, how to deal with the degradation of the coast, you know, by different activities. I will repeat again, including tourism. You know, this is something that should be taken into consideration, and also we are facing now the fact that population is moving from the coast. You know that the construction is moving from the coast because we want to. There is a need to preserve the asset, which is absolutely imperative for tourism. The coast, the beach, and the beauty of the nature that is attracting tourists. In that relation, a particularly important for us is really to attain sustainability of the development is this setback zone, which is the 100-meter non-construction zone from the shoreline. You know, this is the way to answer to this pressure on the coasts, both by anthropic pressure, development pressure by men, and also the risks that are taken to the coast by the nature. First of all, sea level rise, temperature rise, then any other risk that can aggravate the property which will be built on the coast. We know from the tsunami events and everywhere, in other parts of the world, that the biggest damage was under the 100 meters, under the 100 meters on the coastline. More than 50% of loss in people lives and also in goods was produced in this area. When you go further 100 meters, this loss is very reduced. So this kind of rules, I would say, should be respected, both to preserve lives, to preserve property, but also to preserve the natural assets that are most important for tourism development. So those would be the ingredients of a sustainability of the tourism industry.
In this regard, Mr. Klaus, in Germany you have a considerable experience in sustainable tourism. How did it contribute positively to the sector? And in this region, is the concept mature enough in terms of infrastructure, in terms of awareness, in terms of the planning itself?
First of all, there is very often an error when talking on sustainable tourism, because many people consider the product that is in the communities that is branded as sustainable tourism is the one that is sustainable, and the rest of it is unsustainable. When I teach in universities, when I do that, I always say sustainability is defined by the contribution of tourism to the different aspects of sustainability. How much resources does it use, and how much does it protect? And how much cultural resources does it use, also in danger, if there's too many tourists there, and to what extent does it protect culture, and how much investment and how much money does it need, and how much money does it produce. You have to establish those three balances, and the problem is that many people think it must be 100% culturally sustainable, 100% socially, economically, and environmentally, and that's not true. It is a balance. To give you one example, if you need local people getting into jobs, you need a certain amount of visitors. If you don't have 10, 15, 20,000 visitors in a year, it's not economically sustainable. But if you go beyond 100,000 visitors, it might be environmentally and culturally degrading too much, the situation. So the question of sustainability is a question of how small is too small and how much is too much. So I give you an example. We have a tribal community in Panama. If the visitors are not enough, it's not sustainable. It's not worthwhile to go for tourism. If it's too many people coming there, it will destroy their culture. So it's not an issue of like a technical feature of the product. This is sustainable because it is the organization and it is the whole balance of the different impacts it has. And it can be adapted to a certain extent to different numbers of visitors. The concept we now more use for sustainability is not, because I don't like so much the carrying capacity concept, because this says it is more geophysical or feature that you say, oh, if you visit with 10,000 people this place, it's okay. If the next visitor comes, it will destroy everything. That's not true. What the concept we try to develop is limits of acceptable change. Because this has two aspects. One is, it is a negotiation. You have to involve, and the process behind it is what we call a multi-stakeholder process at destination level, where you organize all people who might be affected, who might be interested in tourism, and discuss all their concerns and what they can expect and what they fear from tourism. And then you build a process that you show them what is the perspective if they go for tourism, and then you get their agreement. This transparency and this multi-stakeholder process in destinations is where you establish, discuss, for example, if we have so many visitors, this might mean this impact to your culture. If we have more or less, you can discuss all those issues and then have an agreement on it. And this agreement is accepting the change that tourism will bring, and then we can invite the investors, and then they have the investment climate to really do tourism very well. Unfortunately, very often in many of the places in the world, especially when real estate is involved, the investment plans are behind closed doors. I can give you many examples. I will cite Albania again. There was an interest that would have positioned Albania really on the tourism map. Club Mediterranee wanted to build a resort there. There was a nice beach. The central government said the land is ours, and there were some building companies interested and some people who saw the dollars coming in, but they didn't ask the local people, and there were local people using the land. And when the local people found out through newspapers that somebody is trying to build something on the land that they consider is of their use, they protested. And after 2 years, Club Mediterranee said, no more Albania. And this is what happens very often. So you can only have the sustainability both on the investment side for local people if you arrange this process, and that's what he called governance. You need this governance, and this is also the role that we as GIZ want to play, to moderate such processes, to really maximize the benefits of the investment and of the tourism and minimize the risks and the negative impact. Thank you.
There is the issue of cost. There is the belief that for a project to go sustainable, it will cost more. That's why we see sometimes developers refrain from going into sustainable developments. Is it really sustainable projects cost more than traditional, let's say, projects?
I would dare to say, if you take the overall balance, really not. I had the privilege on one of the ITBs, the tourism shows 2 or 3 years ago, to moderate a very interesting event on mega resorts and sustainability. And I had 2 billionaires on the podium. One was Sami Saviris from Orascom. I think he did one of the very good practices with Elguna in Egypt. And the other one was Achilles Konstantakopoulos from Greece. And this is, I would give this example. It's Costa Navarino on the southwestern part of Peloponnese. And it is a 1 billion investment, and it is, I would dare to say, the most advanced sustainability concept, a nearly zero eco-footprint approach. He's building 100 million in renewable energies. He has done rainwater harvesting, 700,000 cubic meters of reservoirs for all the golf courses. So this is rainwater that would otherwise have gone to the sea. So it has a positive eco-impact because the greening of the area is influencing the local climate. And I was wondering how successful this would be. We have been there last year, and interestingly, it's selling very well. They have one important issue, what you mentioned, is the brand. He is now with Starwood Sheraton. The first hotel was a Westin, and the second a luxury collection. And he has now a banyan tree there from Asia, and it's very successul. And interestingly, what we have seen more than half of the guests were Greek people. This is something with markets. You have capacities, people interested in spending for tourism in your own country, and you have wealthy people in Tunisia, in Egypt, Morocco, and they're also interesting clientele. It's very often forgotten. Don't look only for Great Britain or Germany. Have a mixture, have a product that is ready for both. And I think if you take the overall balance, it pays back. There might be some issues like if you have a more sophisticated wastewater treatment, that is a higher cost. But it can be, if you have rainwater harvesting, it can be very, very profitable. Energy is, of course, an issue now of cost saving. So the overall balance of what you need to invest more and what you gain is nearly like zero. And if you have a good marketing, and this is not... this has to be very intelligent, because if you say sustainable in every second word of your brochure, people wouldn't come because they feel that we cannot use much water in the showers, etc. But they have, and the best if you look in the upper end, the most sustainable ultra-luxury brand, we also did analyze their resorts, is Six Senses, Soneva. On the Maldives, they have one in Oman. They were looking also in the Mediterranean. And they have a very, very loyal clientele who like this combination of ultra-luxury and sustainability. They were the first, by the way, to build their own wind power to even offset the flights of their guests in Soneva Fushi. So there are many examples. However, where it is critical is the low market. So if in a resort like we have seen in Tunisia, where the TUI pays only 15 euros for the all-inclusive day, it's very hard to do sustainability.
It's about awareness, first of all. Mr. Christopher, what are the mistakes that has been done when it comes to tourism investments in the region, and how to avoid them?
Okay, I think this is going back to what I said before, but before I answer this question, I would like to add something on the issue of real estate and mixed-use developments. I definitely share the opinion of Minister Haddad, because there are some let's say, situations where it is necessary for a destination or from a tourism development point of view to allow like mixed-use development or real estate development. In Austria, we have a lot of destinations that are highly seasonable at lakes only for the summer season. And they are quite successful, but after like 30 years, they are not looking as modern and fresh as they should be. So they have a problem of investment, how to invest and upgrade and modernize their facility, or to enlarge sometimes even. So the banks are saying, okay, you need equity. But in order to have this, they don't have this equity there. So what some of the destinations allow them to do is, okay, half of the project will be real estate development in order to finance the modernization and the upgrade of the existing hotel and save tourism, therefore, and make it more attractive to destination. So definitely there are, of course, some situations where it is necessary and even favorable for a destination to allow this kind of development. Nevertheless, it needs to be treated very carefully, as it's always very controversial, because then the next one wants to do it exactly in the same way, and then you lose somehow the atmosphere there in the destination if you have too many second homes and not so many tourists in the destination anymore, and then it loses attractiveness again. So it's a very, very sensitive topic. I think I don't want to talk too much about what the destinations should try to avoid, but maybe what destinations should learn from other destinations, what they have done successfully in the last couple of years. The first thing is a lot of European destinations try intensively to upgrade or to increase the quality. So they have initiated quality improvement programs in tourism, which means on one hand hardware improvement through subsidy programs most of the time, but also in the service quality by kind of seminars and trainings and this kind of things. So this is definitely something modern tourism destinations should take into account. The second thing is to work on the image, on the brand, and try to differentiate as much as possible from competitors by trying to focus on things that are really unique in the destination. On the country level, it's sometimes difficult because you have to cover so many different areas. But on a destination level, it's a little bit easier to see what the competitors are doing and where are my highlights, or where are our USPs. This is definitely the second thing. Let me think about if there is anything else. What can be said about the development? Yeah, the diversification one more time. I mentioned a negative example from Croatia at the beginning, and I want to finish with a positive example from Croatia. I think what Austria did in the last 10 years, that was a really good example. I like this as to show always like an example, like a best practice example. Of course, they had mass tourism at the beaches, but at the same time, they started initiatives to develop the countryside, or let's say the hinterland of the coast, and this very successfully. And they have created a lot of new themes and topics why people really go there. Could be golf, it could be culinary, which is always a very, very nice topic for shoulder seasons, but it's also spa. So they really try to differentiate and to diversify their offer in order to, get more people. And one more thing in the end, a lot of times when talking about successful tourism development, we always talk about, the increase in number of arrivals or number of overnights. But that's not really the important figure. The important figure is how much money they spent there. This is the important figure, and this means then sustainability in the end, if this amount is growing and not the number of people are coming there. Because there are definitely destinations where the price is very low and the figures of arrivals are skyrocket, but in the end, it's not really beneficial for the destinations. Thank you very much.
Mr. Lahcen Haddad, how much the issue of diversification is present in your strategy?
Diversification is very important, and I think that there is not one single type of activity. I mean, like the business model for tourism nowadays, if you depend on one thing, or if you depend on one specific kind of destination, or one specific product, or one specific aspect of the business, then you're at high risk. For example, if you depend on tour operators, there are countries which are like into mass tourism. They bring tour operators. They depend like 60, 70% on tour operators. Now that we are living like in in difficult times for a lot of tour operators, because they are restructuring, because they are feeling the impact of the financial crisis, then those countries are suffering, and they are at the mercy of tour operators, because they are the ones who fix the prices, they are the ones who fix the time, and they are the ones who actually lead the business in those kinds of countries. That's the first one. So lesson number one, don't build on only tour operators. For us in Morocco, we are like about 20% tour operating, want to increase it to 25% or to 30%, want to stay there. 70% will come from other kinds of tourists, like the individual tourists, the cultural tourists, like the different kind of niches, the business tourism, like conferences and events, the golf tourism, and also sports tourism, very important. That's number one. Number two, I don't think you need also to say all-inclusive is bad and the other is good, or vice versa. I think you need to have part of the all-inclusive. We know all the advantages of all-inclusive. We know equally like what are some of the disadvantages. There are cities where you use only all-inclusive, then the restaurants won't work, the bazaars don't work, and there is not a lot of activity outside, because what a lot of the hotels do is they try to create life inside the hotels, have their own bazaars, have their own restaurants, have their own discotheques, and so the tourists don't go out in the town. But you need some of that, because the all-inclusive is something you can tap to. There are people who do that. It's a segment of it. There are markets which are based on that. German market is based on that. Scandinavian market. The Russians now is very important, like the all-inclusive, and you need to do that, but not all of it, so you have to. And I think the other thing also, and which is something that we are trying to do in Morocco, is like we don't want to be only a cultural kind of destination. We are 80% cultural destination, and we are almost like 60% Marrakesh. And in that sense, what we want to do are two things which are very important. One of them is we want to diversify our cultural offer. Not only Marrakesh, we have the hub of Fes and Meknes, two imperial cities, very important. We have the hub, which is here, Tangier and Tétouan, with the small satellites of towns around it, Assil and Chaouen and Larache, constitute a whole cultural destination by itself. And we have also the hub of Casablanca, Salé, all the way to the Portuguese towns on the Atlantic Ocean. That's also a cultural destination by itself. And we're building the capacity in Rabat, in Al Jadida, in order to make that. But the other thing also we want to do is, while we are diversifying our cultural offer in the Medinas that we have, in also the Ksars and the Kasbahs that we are renovating and we are upgrading, we want also to succeed in our seaside resorts plan. We had a plan in 2010. We started some resorts. We didn't start others. We are now reviewing the whole thing so that we increase our bed capacity to reach something like 100,000 beds in our resorts whether in the north of Morocco, but especially in the south, where we have a competitive edge in terms of climate, because like Agadir, Gulmim, and Tantan, we have competitive edge in comparison to Turkey, to Tunisia, and to Egypt, because we have sun 12 months a year. And then the third element, which is important, is our offer in terms of nature and ecology. And we have two destinations, two territories, which are very important. Atlas and the valleys, and that's a very rich ecosystem, the high Atlas, the middle Atlas, and the valleys in the Dra, in the Dadis, in the Ziz, which are very important from a cultural point of view, but also from a nature point of view, from a landscape point of view, from the possibilities that they offer in developing niche ecology, nature-based kind of activity. And the other one is deep south, close to the Mauritanian border, next to Dakhla. And you know Dakhla, the city of Dakhla, was rated by New York Times as one of the top 25 destinations in the world because of its laguna and because there is a meeting of the ocean and the desert there. But it is also sustainable development that we want to develop there. So by the end, what we will have a diversified cultural offer, diversified destination in terms of what it offers, but also, and that's something that Klaus and also and the other panelists talked about, is we want to develop the domestic market. In terms of the markets, we have depended mostly on three very important markets: France, Spain, and the UK. Our domestic market makes 26%. We want it to grow to reach like 40%. I think the lesson we have learned is like if your domestic market makes about like 40%, you are a mature destination. You are a destination that is protected from the vicissitude that will happen around the world. That's also a very important thing.
And
the last one,
sure.
The last one is like we want to branch off into emergent markets. For the projections of the World Travel Organization, the growth that will happen between now and 2020, the 600 million more tourists that will be traveling around the world, a good part of them will come from emergent countries. They will come from China, come from Russia, they will come from Brazil, they will come from India, and from other countries. We want to go there as well.
In these ambitious plans and strategies, how far the private sector is engaged, how far you coordinate with this? I mean, you held a frank dialogue with the private sector. How did this serve this?
Well, actually, our development strategy depends probably like 90% on the private sector. What the government does is develop the infrastructure, develop the projects, has the conception of those kinds of projects, but actually we are banking on the private sector to develop a lot of those kinds of projects. So we are in we have like very good relation with the private sector. They are very well organized, and they are following with us actually the operationalization of this strategy. But I think the private sector also is involved in the marketing side and also in the airlift capacity side, because it's very important. So when we go to different markets in order to attract tourists, in order to do business with tour operators, the private sector is with us. So everywhere we go. So I think this is probably the best model of public-private partnership that exists within the Moroccan economy, is between the tourism industry and the ministry in charge.
Campbell, you call for the need to decouple real estate and tourism developments to provide financial certainty and sustainability. Practically, what does that mean?
I'm not sure. When we're looking at a project, we're looking for expertise, we're looking for experience, we're looking to mitigate our risks. And if anybody is prepared to mitigate our risks, then we'll talk to them. And it doesn't matter whether it's a parastatal organization, a government organization, or a private individual. But what we need, just like any other industry, is a degree of certainty. And if we can get a guarantee, an external guarantee on our money, then we're very happy. But always the underlying project must be viable and sustainable.
Very much. I think we will open the floor now for questions. Please introduce yourself and to whom you're directing your question. So, no questions? Okay, no problem. I would like to end by one common question for all the panelists today. I will start with Mr. Zeljka. Yeah, sure.
Merci bien. Ma question sera adressée à Monsieur le ministre, Monsieur le Haddad. Je suis Mohamed Biad, je suis ex-professeur universitaire en environnement. Actuellement, je me suis reconverti vers l'entreprise de génie rural. Je m'excuse. Mohamed Biad, ex-professeur d'université en environnement. Et actuellement, je suis chef d'entreprise de génie rural. La question, je vais la poser à M. Haddad comme une réaction. M. Haddad, il a parlé de la diversification au niveau du secteur du tourisme. Il a évoqué le tourisme culturel. Ici au Maroc, nous avons un problème au niveau de ce tourisme culturel, puisque je vois que les gens intervenant dans le secteur du tourisme sont focalisés essentiellement sur l'immobilier touristique et les résidences balnéaires. Par contre, le côté culturel du tourisme ne tient pas une grande importance. Est-ce que cela est dû au fait que ces monuments historiques qui représentent un patrimoine culturel et historique du Maroc sont sous la tutelle du ministère de la Culture, ou bien est-ce que c'est une question de conception et de cette approche touristique? Voilà, merci.
Moi, je ne crois pas que... Vous savez, l'importance du balnéaire dans le tourisme marocain est assez limitée. Comme vous le savez, à Agadir, nous avons quelque chose comme 27 000 lits en termes de capacité. Seulement, peut-être 50% sont fonctionnels. Et dans les autres destinations, on est en train de développer la capacité au niveau du balnéaire. Donc, mais c'est surtout le culturel qui est très important. Vous savez qu'entre Marrakech et Fès et Rabat et Casablanca, on attire quelque chose comme 70 à 80% du culturel. Donc les gens viennent au Maroc parce que ce ne sont pas juste les monuments, c'est son patrimoine culturel, c'est sa culture, sa diversité, c'est son patrimoine immatériel. C'est pour cela qu'ils viennent, c'est pour cela qu'ils aiment le Maroc. Donc, ceci dit, nous avons besoin de faire un grand travail en matière de revalorisation de nos médinas, de nos qsbas, de nos qsor, également de notre patrimoine culturel, que ce soit oral ou écrit. C'est le travail que nous sommes en train de faire. Nous avons, dans le cadre du ministère du Tourisme, un programme qui s'appelle Mdinti. C'est la rénovation et la revalorisation de 31 médinas du point de vue touristique, en partenariat avec le ministère de la Culture, le ministère de l'Intérieur, le ministère de l'Habitat et le ministère de l'Artisanat. Donc c'est très important. Et nous sommes en train de travailler avec le ministère de la Culture pour mettre en place également tout un programme de rénovation des kasbahs, de rénovation de pas mal de monuments historiques. Mais nous avons également au Maroc, et vous le connaissez, tout un programme par rapport aux festivals et les grandes manifestations culturelles qui sont une certaine capitalisation sur le patrimoine culturel que nous avons, le Moussoum de Tantan, la musique sacrée à Fès, les musiques populaires au niveau de Marrakech, les Gnawa à Souira, et j'en passe, mais il y en a des centaines comme ça. Nous sommes en train de revoir tout ça pour essayer de l'espacer, pour essayer de le voir comme un vecteur de développement de l'offre culturelle au niveau du Maroc. Donc, moi, je ne crois pas qu'on oublie... Je crois que notre tourisme se base essentiellement sur la culture. Ce que nous devons faire, c'est de revaloriser davantage ce que nous avons, parce que nous avons un patrimoine millénaire qui est très important, qu'il faut qu'il faut mettre en avant et en exergue pour le développer. Et il faut également diversifier l'offre culturelle pour qu'elle ne soit pas basée essentiellement sur Marrakech. Je crois que Marrakech reste toujours la fenêtre du Maroc sur le monde, mais nous avons pas mal d'autres destinations à développer du point de vue culturel.
Your Excellency, any more questions? I think we should stop here as we already passed time. I would thank all the panelists for your contribution and thank you all for your presence. Thank you.